Greetings all and welcome back to another episode of your beloved bi-monthly broadcast, Harlem's very own, featuring as always your three ebullient co-hosts. Speaking first, it's Justin K. Winley, aka McNary Lewis, aka Daddy Longlegs, joined by a FaceTime call, joined by my boy.
Yo, what's up? It's Jude, a.k.a. the Steaming Bachelor, a.k.a. the Sauna Sultan, a.k.a. the Sauna Shogun, a.k.a. Citrus Stefanucci.
Very nice. Wow. And our third mic.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? I got my glasses on right now, so, you know, it's your boy, MFA Simmons, a.k.a. for right now with the glasses on. My name is Franklin Fimblewinter Faulkner, a.k.a. the 25 years your girl is making me her sex slave.
What?
And I am the Muffin Top Muncher, okay? Thank you.
I'm bewildered every time. I'm bewildered every time.
What? Por qué?
You have to cater to the thing we made out here, okay?
Dímelo, papi. I understand. I understand you.
Which is why I am a monch.
Nigga, you eat it for lunch.
Eat it for lunch.
So, this is actually an interview. We do have a guest on with us today. We know we've been away for a while, but we're continuing our features series. Today's guest is
an amazing person.
Yes, an amazing person, a playwright in a production that I'm currently involved in. The AKAs I introduced myself by are my character name. They are originally from the West Coast, now shaking things up here in Harlem. Please welcome, well, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alle Mims. Should I do an AK?
Absolutely.
Please.
Two? Okay. Alle Mims, a.k.a. the world's worst weeb.
Ooh, come on.
A.k.a. No, that's all I got.
There you go. There it is.
What?
Wine lover.
You don't seem like a bad weeb. You've got a Dragon Ball Z shirt on right now.
Yeah, it's like last time I watched Dragon Ball Z, I was like 12.
Oh,
you know?
Lord, you got to catch up on the movies.
I have memories. I just keep rewatching the same animes over and over. I just can't stop.
I got something to say about anime respectfully. I feel like I've gotten more peer pressure to watch anime than to do drugs.
Yes. That's probably correct.
It's more dangerous for your reputation as well.
Definitely.
You know? And it's always some wild shit. Like, yo, have you ever seen Go-Go Ruru Sushi? Some shit like that?
Wow.
I do know what you're talking about. It's not what it's called. I don't watch. That's the thing. I watch like really shitty animes.
Define shitty anime.
I mean, they're not shit. It depends on who you ask, but I watch like Uran Host Club, you know?
Okay.
Yes, I think I've heard of that one.
That one? What, the dating one? Where like the dudes
yes,
they're like,
they're basically gigolos, and the main character is a girl who dresses as a boy.
Is Nick Cannon in it?
Oh my God.
No,
he's a gigolo getting lots of
maybe
dough.
He was featured. And like
series inspired by him.
What's that other one? Kakaguri, which is the gambling anime. It's really fun.
Gotcha.
You ever watched Yu Yu Hakusho?
No, I haven't. It's too popular.
Dude, look at my shirt, bro.
Yes, sir. Oh, the spirit gun, nigga. Oh, my Lord.
Shouts out to my old shorty who made me this when I was 18.
Oh, my
Shouts out
God.
to you.
That's
Shout out to
respect.
you.
So cute.
Good girl, man. Good girl.
Shout out to my big brother for putting me onto that show.
That's a good big brother you have, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I have realized one of the things that has begun to change as I've gotten into my 20-somethings is that I've just had to accept I don't have the patience for most anime, and that's
why you got the anime I watch. It's 1 season, 2 seasons.
Yeah, no, I mean
20 episodes.
Also,
tops.
like there's like a generation that will like my brother, who's like a true millennial, like 32 going on 33, is watching One Piece right now.
I'm literally about to start.
60 years old.
I was in like 2 episodes of One Piece. I've never watched it.
We're going to talk about that.
Wow.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But before we do,
I need to tell my friend about you. Oh shit!
It was a very small part. It was a very small part.
yeah, I mean, this episode isn't just about anime. We wanted to specifically bring Alle on because they are working on their thesis play, Harlem and Moscow, at Columbia University. So we will be discussing that and opening up kind of what it is to even craft a thesis and what drew you to this specifically. But we all have, questions for you. I just want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself and talk a bit about your history with theater.
Sure. Yeah. Well, like you said, I was raised in San Diego and started doing theater when I was just like a kid, just like as a part of school and stuff like that. And then when I graduated, I wanted to study theater. My mom was not super into it, and I was like, I'm gonna go move in with my dad in Dallas, Texas, and I did, and it was all right. But I ended up staying in Dallas for like 9 years, and I got my undergrad there at Texas Women's University.
Nice.
Yeah, let's go pioneer women.
Come on.
It was fun. It was okay. It was a pretty small school, inexpensive, so it was great. They were the only ones who didn't ask for my parents' tax returns. I was like, I'm poor, and they were like, we believe you. I was like, sweet.
We need you to file this document, then this document, then this document.
Yeah,
right,
like, right, exactly. No, they're like, we need your dad's taxes. I'm like, what taxes? But I stayed in Dallas for like 5 years after I graduated, and I did theater, a lot of Shakespeare. That's where I got into anime. So I did voiceover work for like a couple years, maybe 3 years. Because there's a big, actually, anime dubbing studio in Dallas, Funimation. They were recently, they were bought by Crunchyroll recently, so now it's Crunchyroll, but it's in Dallas. Wow. So that's how I got into that, just being in the theater scene there. And then the pandemic happened, I got laid off, and I got into Columbia like a week after I got laid off. And so I was like, well, I'm not doing anything. Yeah, I'm not doing anything for the next 3 years, so I guess I'll go to grad school. And Columbia was sort of like a happy accident. I wasn't going to apply, and I had a mentor who went there, and she was like, you should just apply. You should apply. I'll give you a recommendation and all that. And I'm glad I did. And then Harlem came along. Like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't thinking about. I didn't know that Columbia was like basically in Harlem. Columbia was basically eating Harlem now.
Consuming it.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Don't touch the fucking East Side, please.
Yeah.
No,
They're coming.
it's like,
no, the park is like a magical barrier. I've decided. I don't know what it is, but I hope both the parks keep it on that side at least. But so when I was looking for places, I was like, holy shit, Harlem is right next to Columbia. Like, I never knew that. I want to live in Harlem, which I've always seen as sort of like this, I don't know, like magical place, historical place. Correct. Especially being...
Cue the sirens.
Right. Love it here. I love it in the city. And I just happened to have a classmate who already lived here, and they had an open room, so I moved here, and now I'm in my third year. It's my thesis.
Wow, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I wanted to ask a little bit about a venture that you started while you were still in Dallas, I believe, which is Altered Shakespeare.
Yes, my little baby.
I did a little bit of research, we were doing this interview thing. I was like, let me see what Allie's done. And
hi, Noriega.
Can you, first of all, before I even ask my question, explain what Altered Shakespeare is? Yeah,
so there's like this kind of small tradition in Dallas and other places as well of like doing Shakespeare in the bar, very like low budget, 4 rehearsals, no tech, really short cuts of the script, and just do it with like 10 of your friends. And so there was a number of companies in Dallas that did that, and all of them were overwhelmingly white and basically cast the same 5 white men and 2 white women for everything. It was very hard to break in because those kind of places don't really do auditions. It's really just like a group of friends. And so we, eventually I had met enough disgruntled BIPOC and queer Shakespearean artists who were like, kind of over it. And we were like, well, they don't have a budget. They don't have anything. We could do this. And so we started a company around the same time as another company as well. And I think that was like 2018 or 19. And we did, what did we do? Two Gentlemen of Verona, which I've never done and is not, is not one of the more popular ones. It was super, super fun. And our goal was just to cast more people of color and women and queer people and like look at some, in my opinion, more interesting casting choices than maybe the other companies were doing, in my opinion. Unfortunately, our second show got shut down during the pandemic because it was supposed to open like March 2020.
Wow.
And since then, we've done a few staged readings, but obviously I'm not in Dallas anymore. And me and one of the other founders, like two out of 5 of us now, we both got into grad school at the same time. So we both ended up leaving Dallas.
Other obligations.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were supporting from afar, and they just did a reading not that long ago. They've started partnering with this other like classic theater in town. And anytime they need a cast for a reading, they've been reaching out to us, which is really cool. And honestly, that's something I'd love to start in New York as well, because y'all have drunk Shakespeare here, but it's not really the same. Like, what I love about doing Shakespeare in this format is like it's so low commitment. You rehearse 3 or 4 times on like a Sunday or a Monday night, and then you perform in a bar or a coffee shop or a park, like wherever you can find space. And it's like really low stakes. We were also really committed to working with people who had never done Shakespeare before, because that's just a problem in general with classical acting, is most of the time you won't get hired unless you have classical acting already on your resume.
Sure.
And so it's sort of, catch-22. And so we loved being able to introduce actors and audiences to Shakespeare who might not be interested otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for kind of unwrapping that for me. My question then that springs from that is, oftentimes with Wes, he and I are now with this play, we're on our 4th collaboration.
Yeah.
And, we've formed a pod for ourselves, and there's people that he trusts and works with. And I've
it's
grown
beautiful,
to trust them.
by the way.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
But we talk often about the importance of, or the occasional necessity of having someone who can break into those more traditional faces, like with and for you. Someone like, to put a button on it, to have sometimes a white guy or a white lady on the team to be like, to be the shield in front of you and then come in behind them. So I wanted to ask you, like, what has been, or what do you see as the role of allyship for altered Shakespeare specifically?
I love that.
That's cool.
Well, this is going to get a little personal and maybe a little unprofessional, but the guy I was dating at the time was kind of our producer, and
Nice.
we lovingly called him a white guy in a sports coat. That was his role. That was his official title. He like, sometimes when if you needed to talk to the venue, if you needed to negotiate a price of something, he got more results.
Made it happen.
He got more results.
How do you feel about that?
On the one hand, it feels shitty, absolutely, and I just felt like he didn't earn that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like the way he carries himself. He's tall. He wears fucking jackets everywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, smells like he has money, whatever. And it's like, he just gets stuff done and people trust him. Other men, let's be clear. I'd say other men trust him more than talking to me, or, this little queer Asian guy who's my other, it's just, founder, all the other founders were all like people of color, women, femmes, and it's like, sometimes you need a white guy. I hate to say need a white guy in a sports jacket,
but sometimes you need
helpful.
a Larry Bird.
It's
need a Larry Bird.
It's nice, and it's like, that's how I see Columbia as well. Just like as an institution, is like helping me open doors, and it's hard. Like, I just feel I'm really conflicted a lot. I'm sure others can speak to this too. It's just like, it's helping me open doors, but I'm so resentful that like you have to go to an institution that's deemed worthy in order to find success. Like, I really feel like I bought my way into another social class by going to Columbia. Like, I have connections now that I never would have had, or maybe it would have taken me 15, 20 years to make, and it's like getting a jump start. And so obviously I thought it was worth it because I still came, but it is tough sometimes to feel like, oh, you're not really living up to like your politics and leaning on people in that way.
I just wanted to ask, because I think when you're doing something so intimate and so kind of radical like that, you do find that it's hard to kind of get people to pay attention to you. There is also something to be said for, obviously, if you're able to just make a connection with someone, irrespective of their their gender identity or their race or whatever, and they believe in what you're doing. That's
and it's
helpful too.
Exactly. It's not like I was twisting his arm and forcing him to do it. Like, he wanted to do it, and he didn't want any creative control. That was really important,
Okay, so there you go. You just need someone to literally be like, hi, nice to meet you. These are my friends.
Yes, he paid for our posters. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that I'm like, I would have paid for that out of pocket.
Yeah.
He was the producer. That was his job, so... I don't feel bad for taking this white man's money.
Nor should you.
Think of yourself as like RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. He linked up with Steve Rifkin at Loud Records, and he got the entire clan
There you go. Yes,
to
exactly.
record deals, and he got them deals in other record labels because he had creative control.
Exactly. Like if someone opens the door for me, I can hold it open for other people. Is how I see it.
You
like,
RZA.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ali, aka RZA.
So you said that you lived in San Diego, but in your little bio Justin provided for us, you said you lived in San Diego, Dallas, and now in New York. So
Born in Michigan, right?
born in Michigan.
I was born in Michigan.
But you went all four like main regions of the United States.
Yeah. I'm just missing the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
What are the phases and changes that each area has put on you? That,
man.
Well, how did each area like change you and made you who you are?
Oh, that's an interesting question. That's so interesting. Well, San Diego, I don't know. It's hard to judge San Diego because I was so young. We moved there when I was like 3 or something. And so that's just where I grew up. And honestly, I hated it there. I was like, I was just like every other kid. Like, I hate my hometown. Can't wait to get out. Except it was just in San Diego. So it was beautiful. It was like 75 degrees and balmy as I was like, I hate it here. And
Yeah. How's your first winter in New York, bro?
It was awful. No, the weather is probably the worst part of the city. I thought Dallas would have the worst weather. Because it gets it gets fucking hot there, and there's
It's hot as shit. I mean, it does. You can bake cookies on the door.
Hot.
On the DoorDash.
It's so hot. And it also gets cold in Dallas as well. Doesn't snow nearly as much, but it does usually snow like once a year, maybe, in North Dallas at least. But yeah, it's hard for me to judge San Diego. That's just where I was raised. I do think like a big part of my the culture I was raised in comes from there, and being like on a border in a border county, I guess. I feel like that really influenced me, and I felt like I lived in diverse places, but I have to say it wasn't until I got to New York that I was like, oh, like no, I wasn't. My schools were not diverse, you know what I mean? Not that Columbia is, but I had never lived in a neighborhood with this much diversity before, but I had always been in San Diego and Dallas and these more conservative places. And so I guess San Diego, I'd say the culture. I still love the music, the fashion. And then Dallas, I don't know. I think of that as my early professional years, I guess. It's when I worked in an office for the first time. And I think that's what I really, unfortunately, was really trying to conform more. I mean, to white standards and heterosexual standards and stuff. I mean, Dallas is just a more conservative place. And it's just, I really felt the pressure to look a certain way, dress a certain way. And especially going to college and stuff. And I grew up really fast. I moved in with my dad, and it wasn't the best situation. So I also think of that as my mom was helicopter parent, very
tiger mom in a way.
No, clingy, not tiger mom, coddles me. Babied me a lot. I was her youngest kid. She babied me a lot, and I moved with my dad, and he's like, you're an adult. And so it was kind of rough there for a few years, and I feel like I kind of went through a second I don't know, puberty or something.
That's cool.
And had to just grow up and start working and, doing all the things, and be responsible for myself. And New York really feels like I'm getting to be creative for the first time and open for the first time. I feel like I'm just now learning to be myself. That sounds so cheesy. Oh my God, it sounds so cheesy. But it's true. Just being around the diversity here, I did not think about how it would change how I make art, because I didn't really process that I was making art in white spaces for so long and feeling as though I needed to write a certain way or act a certain way in order to be successful.
Cool.
No, that is very interesting that you say that, because New York is definitely the type of place to do that, and especially a place like Chicago too.
Yes, I spent a couple months in Chicago a couple years ago, and same thing. That was the first time I was in a black neighborhood. Well, living in a black neighborhood. Obviously, I've been in black neighborhoods. Gardens, green, green something green.
Don't talk about Cabrini Green. No. That's Candyman right there. That's Candyman.
I don't remember. I was there. I moved my sister out there. She lived there for a year or two.
Oh, okay. Nice. I loved everything that you had just said. Just about Shakespeare itself. This might be a cliche question that you might have gotten, but with your love of Shakespeare and like your love of acting, I would say like who was the influence of your acting journey and like what it took for you to get to the point where you feel like Shakespeare is the sort of the point to unravel a bit more when it comes to our generation, since you know it's been some time where you don't really see a lot of plays and a lot of people that are of the younger generation talking about Shakespeare. So like in a way, is this a way to inspire more people that are the youth to know more about Shakespeare, but also seeing it in a different light to where it's not just white people seeing that, it's just like, oh, it's just somebody like me that's also doing something that I have trouble understanding and I can get a better understanding. I'm still looking at this.
Well, I think I was really lucky because I grew up in San Diego, and that's where the Old Globe is, which is like they just do Shakespeare. I mean, they do other stuff too, but they do mainly Shakespeare. It's like a pretty well-known Shakespeare company in America. And one of my first plays I saw was Romeo and Juliet, and this is just so more cliches, but it was really like there. I remember like I must have been like 8 or something, but I remember there was one black guy, or at least he was the one who stuck out to me, and I just thought he was so funny. And everyone had told me, oh, you're gonna have trouble understanding Shakespeare, and I didn't really know the story of Romeo and Juliet at that point, and I didn't have any trouble understanding it. Like, no, I probably couldn't quote it, but I knew exactly what was going on. I mean, that's also a credit to like the acting and the direction, but especially when this guy was speaking, I remember he had one monologue about, you know, taking the maiden heads of some girls or something, some sexual joke. And again, I'm 8, I don't understand, but I'm like laughing because just his actions, his like body. And I think when I started doing classical theater, I think it started as a way to ignore like race and gender roles on stage. I wasn't sure like where I fit, you know, on stage specifically. And when I did classic theater, I was able to play like male roles and stuff like that. And so it kind of felt like, oh, in classic theater, I don't have to think about these things and like conforming to these ideals that I was trying to in normal plays and contemporary plays. And so I hope like people seeing like my company, if we ever get back on stage one day, I hope that helps that, because I would never forgot that guy. I don't know his name. I don't know what role he was playing, but I never forgot seeing him. And I remember my mom telling me like, you were on the edge of your seat watching this. I was like, it was so good.
Wow.
And like also another thing, I'm tall. We were just talking about this. I'm 5'10", and I had just gone my whole life. I had just gone my whole life being told I was too tall for certain things, and it was like,
fuck them.
It's so I wasn't too tall for varsity basketball, but it was just like like in classic theater, it didn't matter as much. You could be like bigger and take up more space.
Yeah.
And so that's
Be
really
nice and grand.
how it started. Huh?
Be grand.
Exactly. Like it doesn't have to be. Yeah. That's a good word for it. Grand.
Because I know like when it comes to the character breakdowns, they're gonna need someone who is this stature and you know, like if you need to be this certain height, but it's like, I don't give a fuck. Like you can play this part and you can be this type of person without even needing. Yeah. Do you know about the classical theater of Harlem?
Of course.
Oh yeah,
I've heard about them.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Gave
Y'all
them
have to go.
the email and stuff like that. Yeah. They just announced auditions, but they passed. But
yes,
I'm looking.
Oh yes. What is that? Malvolio.
Yes.
Are you doing that?
No. I was on. I couldn't make it, but
they filled up fast.
they did. They posted it 2 days ago before the deadline. I said, damn, that's a little fucked up. Like y'all did this 2 days
yes,
before.
And then by the time I clicked on it, they were like full. I was like, damn.
Like, come on, bro. So,
but they're awesome. They're about to have something transferred to Broadway. 12th night. Their 12th night is coming to Broadway.
Okay, that's gonna
Congratulations.
It's awesome. It's an awesome production.
But that's like, I'm glad that Shakespeare is, I mean, given like the person of who he is, but like this a certain language that it's very you can't bury that. And just saying like, oh well, this guy created a whole lexicon about a certain language that he has written over time, and you know it has changed the game. But fuck this guy. Okay.
Yeah. No, but you got to find a way to keep it relevant. I think it would be. I mean, we're 3 out of the four of us are actors at this table. Jude, you were on an episode of Blue Bloods.
I was on an episode of Blue Bloods. Yeah,
That's so funny.
I was in a wheelchair buying drugs. Yeah, yo.
I need to find this episode.
I couldn't find it.
I'll find it.
What's funny was
I'll
I wore like a sweater and like jeans and the wardrobe dude, this gay guy, he was like, "You look too preppy." I'm like, "Nigga, what?"
He was like, "You look like a twink."
You ain't buying drugs in no wheelchair.
You don't look like no crackhead.
The reason I say that though is that I'm acknowledging that there might be a bit of bias in discussing Shakespeare and his importance to culture, but I think that it, whatever work can be done to keep what he did relevant and to find, I mean, people have been spinning it for years. You have to.
What part of it should stay relevant and what part of it should not be relevant?
Oh, I think it needs to be for the people. It needs to be accessible. I wish all Shakespeare was free because it's free to do it. You don't have to pay rights for it. Obviously, you want to pay your actors. And
public
stuff
domain.
Like that. Yes, it's in the public
the man's
domain.
been dead for millennia.
Yes, exactly. For generations. So that's my big thing, and that's what I feel like doing that low budget Shakespeare is for, because it's like, we charge like $10, and like all of it just gets split among whoever worked on that production, and it's like it just feels much more egalitarian than these bigger companies. I don't know how Classic Theater of Harlem does it, but they have a bigger budget than us, I'm assuming. But I think that's a big one for me. Is it's for the people, and the people should be able to understand it.
Yeah, and I mean, this wasn't for. I don't know if that was for me or for the table or anything.
It was for everybody.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say
the three
that
thespians,
I think like the best Shakespeare, and I haven't really read that much or even seen that much, but the ones that I really like are the ones that I feel like are like he captured something that seems sort of immortal about humanity and about like the way we struggle for power or for pride or to be seen,
love,
or love. Like they're human stories at the end of the day. So, and it's also like a time capsule, like to be able to watch we obviously now because we don't talk the way that people spoke back then. It feels like foreign to us, but that's part of the historical preservation of it. To be like this is how people used to communicate. Like one day people will listen to HBO and be like, they used to say nigga all the time.
Right.
Nigga a lot. In 2023.
A lot.
We don't do that anymore.
God, I just had a question in my head about this. Fuck. Go ahead, Ahmad. Answer the same thing about Shakespeare.
No, I'm just I remember the first time I was introduced to Shakespeare, and it was just it was definitely weird for me, given the language. That was the first thing that I had noticed, and I was just like, why are they saying? I was like, why are they saying doth and that's and thou and it was just. I was weirded out, but I was also interested at the same time as to what they were talking about. But then after some time, I just come to realize that, and this was my freshman year of college, and my my professor for theater, he had the lexicon. Shakespeare lexicon. Every class he brought it with him. Like he was devoted, and he was like, "You guys take this man's language and his work for granted, and I'm not going to stand here and let you guys do that to him, because for something like this to be created and also given to us, like you cannot like throw this away. Like this is like a sort of like a pioneer or like a shift when theater came about, and so why would you want to throw this away and not learn more about it and put it in more plays? And he didn't say this shit, but like for me saying this, I'm like, yeah, why aren't we putting out more plays for this and having folks that look like us on that stage playing those characters? But of course, they always, those, like I said before, those character breakdowns. Like, we're gonna need this person who is white, blonde hair, has blue eyes, and we're gonna need them to be this type of way. But what if that person is the exact opposite, but they're telling the exact same story, and somebody else can be like, wow, I remember going through that shit. Or like, oh,
Yeah.
that's some funny shit. And so, and now, you know, I'm glad that there's more Shakespeare in the park. And so, what I want for, you know, your for your company is to put your shit on Shakespeare in the park. Like, that would be amazing.
I love that.
You know, it's one of those things that, like, it almost feels like a superpower when, like, when you get it, like Shakespeare, you know what I mean? I remember, because there was a period where I was also studying, as an English class, I was reading Julius Caesar. We read Julius Caesar and Macbeth in the same year.
Wow, two intense ones.
Yeah, right. And I was reading Macbeth, and I think it was the same time that House of Cards had just started on Netflix, and I was like,
oh my god, House of Cards is so Shakespearean.
I was like, this is the same thing, and it just became so clear to me. But it's interesting because recently there was a conversation I was having with producer Wes in the background there about this Twitter thread. Is someone screaming in the street?
That's a dog.
It's a dog.
Oh, it's a dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of DMX's dogs.
Rest in peace.
RP to the God, man.
He's mourning.
We were.
I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Drop.
He's mourning about him. You know what I mean? It's been some time since he's been gone.
Yeah.
What these bitches want from a nigga? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm done.
So, there was a Twitter thread that was going around about this interaction between a film professor and a student, and the film professor had asked the student to respond to or analyze Casablanca, I think, and the student was like, I can't respond to, like, there's nothing in this that interests me, and the film professor was like, well, then maybe you need to find a different major. And so we were having this conversation as to, like, what are the parameters for being able to participate in an art, and I think that, like, that could be its own podcast, but a lot of people probably have that conversation about Shakespeare, right? Like, do you need to do Shakespeare to be a real actor? Do you need to direct Shakespeare? You know, all that stuff. So it's I guess, just to put a button on that part of the conversation, it is great to see that you are finding a way to keep it fresh for yourself and for a new generation, just a new era of folks everywhere. But I want to pivot now to your thesis. Harlem and Moscow. And to give the listening audience a little bit of a log line, this is what would you call it? Like a historically fictive, kind of sort of historically based play.
Yeah.
I'd
call it a satire.
Historical satire, we'll put it like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, based on true events that occurred when a group of black artists and educators traveled to the Soviet Union in June of 1932, led by Langston Hughes and Louise Thompson, to make a communist propaganda film about black American life. The film never got made, but Alle did make this play. And now
it's the next best thing.
And they're getting ready to debut it actually, by the time this releases this weekend. So Alle, talk a little bit about you mentioned in your bio that you are drawn to 20th century, history for your storytelling. And when I was looking through your website, I saw that there was one that you had, Lorraine Hansberry, I think you wrote.
Oh, yeah, I wrote the essay.
Short essay in her voice.
Yeah, it was an essay. I guess so.
And so what drew you to Harlem and Moscow, and maybe by extension, what is it about that period of history that fascinates you so much?
I think what fascinates me about it is like the generation before the civil rights that we think of the civil rights 1964, and this is really like the 1930s are like, it's like the precursor to that, it's another move. There is a push for civil rights in the 1930s.
Prologue.
Yes, absolutely. So there's all these labor movements happening, and so it really started, I was like working my way backwards. I read Black Against Empire, which is like the Black Panther like Bible essentially, and I was like, there was like a whole chapter on Marxism, and
what's it called again? Where's the pen, yo?
Black Against Empire.
Gimme. I need reads. I need reads.
It's so good. It's so good. That's where it started. I just started reading that during the pandemic, and it started going into like Black Marxism, and I was like, I've literally never heard of this. I didn't know. Like for me, like Marxism, communism was like a white thing. I was in.
That's that white people shit.
Yeah, I was in a college town, and occasionally white people called each other comrade, and I kind of like rolled my eyes at it, and they like sort of idealized the Soviet Union, and I didn't understand it. And so to find out there was black folks doing this again, I was like, oh, like this is something that affects all of us, and so started sort of working my way backwards from there. And that's when I started learning. That's when I took this class, actually, about this trip. It was Dr. Jennifer Wilson. I don't know. Yes, Dr. Jennifer Wilson.
Shout out to you.
Yes, shouts out. She's incredible and so smart and basically like the expert on this trip specifically. And again, like 1930s, like black international activists, I guess. And it was just about this trip. And also it gave a little background again about like black communism and sort of the generation right before them and the generation right after them. And I don't know, it was just so unbelievable to me that this event that was like front page news for so long is just like gone from history. Like when I first started pitching the show, people thought it was like fictional.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, so you've thought up this fun like scenario and like thrown Langston Hughes and how ridiculous. And I'm like, no, this happened. Like he went there. A lot of people went there, you know. Audre Lorde went there, you know. Like, so I think that's the thing that fascinated me the most is like that cross section of like black history, queer history, and communist history.
Yeah.
And I really just dove in, and there's just so much. Like, there's so little. Like, you know, your character is so invented. Like, it definitely based on real people, but you know, McNary Lewis himself, I know so little about.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I'm having to go through like hundreds of pages of just like receipts and letters and telegrams trying to find like one piece of information that I can use. And so...
Did they have any living relatives? Did you ever try to track any of them down?
No.
Or?
Well, that's interesting. There is a documentary about the black living relatives in Moscow because after this trip, one person on the trip stayed behind and lived in Russia for the rest of his life. And he had kids, and his... I don't know if it's his... It must be his grandson. His grandson is still alive, and he's like
Some
a
Slavic
jazz
babies.
singer. He's like a jazz singer in Russia. And so there is that, but I don't know about like Louise Thompson. Langston Hughes had no children, but
Louise lived a long
Louise
life,
Thompson
I think.
had kids. Dorothy West had kids. Dorothy West definitely has relatives because they take care of her estate and stuff. I never thought about that.
Do you think...
My bad.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I know that, or I have some idea that, like, with film, there's, like, the whole thing about life rights, where if you're going to make a biopic about someone, you have to secure that. Do you think... Does that exist with theater?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe that would complicate it anyway if you did reach out.
Yes, I mean, that's why I was nervous. Langston Hughes' estate is notoriously strict when it comes to how he is depicted. And so I had to be very careful. Some writers have the prerogative of you should just reach out and ask or let them know, hey, I'm writing a play about Langston Hughes, just so you know, and then, you know, leave it in their court. I don't know. I was nervous to do that, so I just didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's a lot of it comes from, like, I think the problem that they have specifically is, like, you can't take a Langston Hughes poem or essay and say, because of this, we know he's gay, essentially. That's, like, their big thing is, like... He's not gay, he's not queer, blah, 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 blah. And so I was nervous about this. And, like, for a long time, the queerness, like, wasn't even in there at all. Like, McNary had a few, like, throwaway lines. But, I mean, it could have been anything. It could have been him, you know, just making fun of him. There was no, like, definite anything. And, you know, that's a big challenge when writing about Langston Hughes because he was so ambiguous, and I don't think the play needs to answer, you know,
one way or the other.
Yeah, and I don't have an opinion. I'm not like a die-hard, he was gay, he was closeted, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? I just think there is so much gray area.
He's not J. Edgar Hoover, you know?
Yeah, exactly. He's not J. Edgar Hoover, goddamn. Although I'd love to write something about him as well. Oh my god, I hate that guy so much.
I would love for you to
roast in
roast
fucking
him.
pieces. Like, the worst, you know. But yes, it is. I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous.
Sure.
But I think because I don't use any Langston Hughes, like I'm mostly working from like Louise Thompson and Dorothy West's archive, and they're just not as big of a public figure anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting. There was a recent development in the case of Malcolm X's assassination.
What development?
Where they, I think, well, first of all, 2 years ago, they acquitted the people that were wrongly convicted.
Yeah.
Yeah, because didn't the FBI do this as well.
Well, I mean, now we're saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
They did everything.
Yeah,
That's on a list.
But my dad was just, reminding me, or really, I think, telling me for the first time that because my dad is a retired parole officer, he was actually tasked with reaching out to Malcolm X's daughters, to get their comment on how they felt about the guys. It was actually when they were first up for parole. I think or one of the first murderers or something like that.
What was this in like?
It was the early 2000s at least.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a while ago. And he couldn't get in contact with either of them. But that just made me think of that oftentimes we look at these things as having happened so long ago and we forget that some of these people had families. Some of them had, there are people still alive who might know them.
Yeah, it's not that far away. I ran into a woman on the street the other day who was looking at my building and she's like, oh, I used to live in Harlem like 20 years ago. And we just started chatting and I told her about this project and she was like I think it was her great uncle, and this woman was older, she was probably in her 70s or something.
Yeah.
And she's like, my great uncle has a letter from Langston Hughes because he visited, I don't even remember, like a South American country, and Langston Hughes was there or something. I don't know.
Invite this lady to the show.
Maybe it was in right. No, she gave me her number. I was like, holy shit, this is like one generation away. He would have been older, than my grandparents, but almost the same generation. Maybe half a generation older.
1901.
And it's just wild. Yeah, 1901.
He was born. Well, I have more questions, but I know I sent the script to you guys, or at least I know you know about it.
That was like 90 pages, bro.
I wouldn't expect you to read the whole thing, but I
would have. I read the whole shit.
I'm giving you space to ask any questions you might have about the plays before I don't want to just keep going.
No. I'm intrigued as to what I've been hearing this whole time. But I guess like the question about the play is like, what made you want to go ahead with these certain races of your play, and also with the certain character names that are in here too? Like, was there a certain influence there for people that you've like talked with, or was it just like off the top of the dome?
For the characters' names?
And also, how long did it take you? What was the process of making this script over time?
I started the script in fall of 2021. And it started as just like a 10-page scene. It was my final project for this class. I was like, instead of an essay, can I write a little play? And she was like, of course.
That's hard.
Yeah, and so I wrote a play based on the scene where Henry Lee confronts the Soviet officer. So that was the first scene I wrote. And all the names are real. They're all from history. And some of them are like combined people. McNary Lewis is McNary Lewis, but he's also Dorothy West. And like Henry Lee Moon is Henry Lee Moon, but he's also Ted Poston, So there are some people. Carl Junghans is also Sergei Eisenstein, who's like a Russian director at the time. So a lot of them have been combined. There was 22 people on this trip, and they met a bunch of people while they were there too. And so a lot of it has been cut down. And then I knew I wanted to play with like racial performance on stage. And I knew I wanted to maybe push the line a little with the satire. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to feel comfortable if there are white actors in these roles. Because they're doing some racist things, they're saying some pretty inflammatory things on stage. And so we had always talked about possibly casting someone who was not white, even not black. We talked about casting someone who was like Puerto Rican at one point for some of these roles. But after we did the first reading, I was like, I think, and Wes also said the same thing. I'm like, I think it needs to be an all black cast. I think that's the only way that I hesitate to say the word safe, but it's like, it just for me, I don't know how it's been for y'all, but like, it's just, to me, is easier. And I don't know, there's just like a different level of understanding when it's an all black cast, whereas
you don't have like an actual white person saying Negro.
And like I feel like every time I've worked with a white person who had to play someone who was racist, it's like either they're apologizing the whole time or they're like a little too
they're
good
too
at
into
it.
it.
Yeah, and you're like,
You say that on a regular.
Yeah, and so
you look in the mirror when you say that.
Even like you're just saying it hard R immediately. Like,
morning, nigga.
So it was like when we read it in class, the girl who read it was not, trying to be racist, but it was still so uncomfortable. She was white when we read it for the first time, and I was like, "This is awful. We cannot cast a white person as this."
This makes me think of that story that Will Smith has been telling, as though it's some gem of like method acting. That when he was doing Emancipation, his white co-star improvised spitting on him. I was like, you can't. No,
that's a little D, bro.
You can't do that. You can't even do that when you're not playing a slave owner. By the way, I don't
Exactly,
think
like a normal. I would not accept that in any circumstance.
but especially not like, oh, sorry, bro, I was in the moment and I decided to spit on you, Will Smith.
Absolutely not.
One of the most recognizable black actors
of our time.
Actors, nigga, like
actors. Period.
End of story.
He was basically saying that this man did it, and he was like, "All right, we're gonna do multiple takes of that," and he spat on him.
He only did that because of Jada's
same
Pinkett.
spot for every single take. Yeah,
this is the executive producer of the film.
Yeah,
Oh,
You're
my
fired.
God.
But
yeah.
to me, you're fired.
And like you said, this man did not speak to Will Smith throughout the entire time.
Will Smith was like, yeah, he was so in it. It's the guy who plays the main racist guy who's like hunting him the whole movie. Ben Foster, who's a great actor, but it's like weird. Weird
So-
decision.
No, it's a little too comfy.
Once they said, "All right, that's a wrap," he said, "How you doing, Ben Foster? Nice to meet you."
I hate white
was
men.
Wait a minute.
Yo,
This nigga?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Wait, let me see.
No, this
yeah.
hairline is egregious. That is a racist.
This is a guy who would want to play Colonel Cooper. And
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yes,
he looks like he
exactly.
plays Colonel Sanders. I remember him from a movie about these white kids who were drug addicts, and he played a neo-Nazi. He plays too many racists. Alpha Dog. It was about some white kid who got kidnapped by some wannabe drug dealers. Nigga had a swastika on his chest in this movie, and he was Jewish too.
he's like, oh, I could relate. So yeah, no, but Will Smith, he was like encouraging that. He was like, that's like what this role is about. You know, me thinking back, I'm in this time where I'm not unable to do anything. You know, I'm held against my will. I'm like, nigga, if a person spit on me, they getting fucked up. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
right?
sorry.
How do I feel about that? Like this whole method acting shit.
Oh, I hate it. It's awful. It's not, and it's not necessary.
Yeah.
It's never necessary.
I think, first of all, there's like, there's obviously like different methods, but the method capital M that people are thinking about is like the stay in character 24/7, Daniel Day-Lewis, Joaquin Phoenix type of thing, right?
Jim Carrey.
Weirdos.
Yeah. And I think like, hey, Daniel
White
Day-Lewis,
guys.
Daniel Day-Lewis was
Like,
pretending
like-
to be a mentally handicapped person
and physically handicapped.
and physically
Yeah.
handicapped.
My left foot, yeah. No, there is a certain level of derangement that comes with, I think, the profession, maybe in general,
Yeah.
but also
Yeah,
with that level,
absolutely.
with that level of it. My thing is, I try not to underestimate my imagination, and I don't think anyone else should.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to remember that at the end of the day, you're just telling a story, and like you should be able to shake that story off.
Yes, exactly.
Go
You've
home.
got to
It's the
have
same thing with
that.
like anybody who has any kind of like intense job.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be a cop, firefighter, anything where you're like
Doctor, yeah.
fight or flight a lot. You have to be able, there has to be something where you're like, and now I'm here and
Yeah,
it's done.
the ritual.
I mean, I don't know if I've said this on air before. I think I've said it to you guys individually, but my friend Amir Royale, shout out to you, Amir, friend of the show,
Love you, man.
often talks about like the health of actors in that we often prioritize the warm up, but there's never really an emphasis on cooling down, right?
Yeah.
That's an athletic thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Right?
You're right.
So if you're just like, and even in one of our over at the Media Morgue, shout out the Media Morgue, we've got some interviews.
So many shouts out.
Yes, we've got some interviews coming up with Columbia University filmmakers.
That's interesting.
We were talking to one who made a film, in short, about a woman who was experiencing some post-traumatic kind of flashbacks of an attack that she endured.
Yeah.
And, we were talking about, she read this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers or something like that, which is apparently there's a nature fact that after if a zebra escapes from a predator, it shakes its body to rid itself of the adrenaline.
Yes, I've seen this video.
But human beings don't have
Zoologist Justin.
human beings don't have that instinct, so we can carry a lot of like stuff in ourselves that we don't even know about, right?
Yeah.
And then we're
Ulcer.
paying, and then we're paying $150 an hour for a therapist to tell us like, hey, You're
I'm not gonna
traumatized.
charge that. I'm not gonna charge that much.
How does that make you feel?
100 probably.
Therapy dupe.
Yeah.
Having a podcast.
Acting, making movies, therapy, dude. But yeah, so I think, I mean, that's for me. Like, I try to do as much as I can in the research, in the brain, in like creating even a different physicality for the character, so that when I stop doing that movement or whatever, then I know that I'm not that guy.
You're not them anymore.
Yeah, method acting, it can be very dangerous.
Yes,
It can be dangerous
yes.
to your, like, yes, your mental, but also the people around
Your
you.
co-stars,
Like,
fucking Jared Leto and shit.
This
Fucking
was-
weirdo,
God.
bro. Doesn't that
This
nigga have a
was,
cult?
Yes.
this was when Jim Carrey played a this was a
played a serial
biopic
killer?
of no, this was of a comedian, and this was he did some stuff on SNL, I believe.
That man's name.
But I know it's something Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole time I watched the documentary, I was like moved by it, but also I said, I know I can never do that shit. Like, this man, as soon as he stepped on set, this man transformed into Andy. Literally had his parents come on set. Andy's parents come on set. And they saw Jim, and literally they forgot that was Jim Carrey. They said
Wow.
that is literally Andy that we're
Oh
talking
my god,
to.
that's a little creepy.
It's
but
very
kinda
creepy. They
cool.
said, "Oh my god, what if you?" They're like, "Oh my god, son." They had conversations with said
this is-
Andy.
The
This
woman that
is
gave birth to the
weird.
man was at the set.
That's so.
Yes.
That's a little.
Yes.
She put him
And-
out of her uterus.
Yes,
man.
literally had arguments with him and all of that shit, and like all his co-stars were like, "Yo, bro, turn that shit off!" Like, bro, that shit is getting creepy.
that's
Like the
a lot.
director,
That's a lot.
the
I mean,
crewman,
Keenan Ivory
like,
Wayans
what are you
with him on that set
doing?
to bring him back to earth. You still in the living room.
Yeah, and then afterwards, in the last scene that was done, he was like, "All right, time to go." It's like, it's just
Wow.
You know, I mean, I think there's a line, right? Like, there's a difference between, you know, John Bernthal when he talked about like playing the Punisher, when he's like, sometimes I have to be in a room by myself. Like, I can't hang out with my kids when I'm trying to
Yeah.
play the Punisher, you know? Like, I have to, just to get into the mode. But there's a difference between that and like, why would you bring the man's parent?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Right,
you want their
right.
blessing for the performance, but they don't need to be on set to
No,
watch
and
you
having
embody
conversations
this
with their
person.
dead son.
Like, it's a weird
Yeah.
sort of like seance.
they were like,
Yes,
he
that's
was
creepy,
that.
dude.
It's
We're
like,
taking the
he
craft
really
too far.
was Andy. Like, we really saw Andy. Like, oh my god.
no,
It's like,
your
bro,
son is dead.
you are not grieving right. You're not grieving right about this man.
no,
you need to
that's
get
too
off.
far.
It was very, very creepy. It was very
Yeah.
creepy.
Well, I think it's interesting just to loop back around to your play. Like, this wasn't one of my prepared questions, but it makes me think, when you are playing in a kind of gray area between history and imagination, you know, I guess my question is, how do you give yourself the liberty to invent not just like to invent the personality, to invent the character traits, you know, how do you find comfort with that?
Well, it's really uncomfortable. Like, it can be very uncomfortable because these were real people. Like you said, not that long ago. This happened less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were real people who had real lives, and I just get like 300 pages of their life, and I have to invent everything else. You know, and some of them, like you said, you know, Langston Hughes, Louise Thompson, obviously people have written a lot about these people. But yeah, no one's writing. It's like, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely a struggle with the script at first, was that, you know, people were like, well, you don't really show this side, you don't show that side. I'm like, well, because I can't find any evidence of it, you know? And it really took reading it in class, and my professor was like, yes, more wine, please. My professor was like, you know, you keep saying that Langston Hughes, we're going to see like some gayness or something, and that it's also about queer history, but I just don't see that. And I was just nervous to put it in there. One, because of the estate, like we talked about.
Yeah.
I had already heard they were stricter than most. But two, because I'm like, what if, like real talk, like what if the man's dying wish is just don't let anyone know I was a fairy? You know what I mean? Like, just don't. I don't want anyone to call me a twink 90 years from now on a podcast. Like, you know, I really feel like, so it is a line. Like, I feel like I'm crossing a line. And I feel like hopefully I'm doing it for good. I don't think I'm abusing it, but it's hard. And it definitely took some like cajoling from other people. And also, y'all, having the actors has been so helpful for that. The questions that y'all asked, like your motivation, y'all were like so instrumental in shaping these characters. Like, some of them maybe had some stuff already, but y'all filled it out, really. And I mean, sometimes you ask a question and I'm like, I don't know, I gotta go home and write that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have an answer for that. I didn't even think about it that way. But it's been to see like the transformation of like the first draft to now. A lot of it is, you know, credit to you, to Wes and my dramaturg, Alexis Williams as well.
Shout out to the dramaturg.
Yeah, shout out. We love our dramaturgs. That, you know, just asking questions. Yeah, why do I say this line here? Why don't I ever have a moment where I say blah, XYZ? You know, that's been so helpful. And y'all have just filled in, like, just having that person on stage, you know, having Basil, who is, you know, an ambiguous figure himself, get up there and play it. Luckily, that does some of the work for me. You know, he's queering it without me having to, like, put on the page, I'm Langston Hughes and I'm gay. Like, he's queering it in a way that is always present, even if like we're not plainly stating, you know,
And I think you've worked with Basil a few times on a few different projects.
Yes, he was also in my second year project, which was like an audio play about, it was autobiographical. It's about my time in Dallas, actually, with my dad. So he played my dad, the dad character. And it was it's about meth addiction, and it's about like this father-daughter, and they, you know, it's sort of a typical living room play, but it's they're, you know, very poor, this biracial kid with her dad, living with her single dad, and her boyfriend has gone missing, essentially, the day before they were supposed to like move out. And so they're spending the play trying to find him because they have to pay rent, and like, you know, he pays a third of the rent, and now he's not there and they can't afford to live there anymore. And so it's about them. He's been missing for 3 days, but they've also not been able to re-up in 3 days, and so they're desperate for one thing or another.
Shit.
And yeah, he's incredible. I mean, he has an amazing speaking voice, and so it was just 4 actors at mics and like a sound effects Foley person. It was really, really cool. He is another one that, he just took Bill, the character, to the next level. You know, when I first started writing it, it just kind of felt like, this is like kind of my dad, but not really. And then he made it something different. Like he's not my dad, but it's, you know, he made it its own unique thing.
You're not my dad.
Yeah. You're not my real dad, but you're a good actor, though.
Dad adjacent.
Yes.
Jude, do you have another one?
So briefly, you spoke about your dip into anime voiceover work, and I was wondering what you thought about anime being the juggernaut it is in American culture. How is it special to people? Why is it special to mainly like our generation and younger kids? And from your perspective as a consumer, but also an actor, you know, why anime is such a big deal?
I don't know. I wish I could answer, because maybe I'd have like a better answer to like why other things aren't as popular. But I don't know. I find it really fun and imaginative, and it can also be very like heartwarming, and you know, you get stuff like Studio Ghibli and stuff like that it's like so profound. And then I love me some Ouran Host Club, which is just like a gay romp, you know, with some rich kids. I will say, like, speaking to like what a huge phenomenon it is, I think, first of all, voice actors and people who make that stuff need to be paid more.
A lot more.
You know, a lot more.
Damn straight.
Because they just, there's so much money in that industry. And, you know, at least in Dallas, you get paid $35 an hour. And, you know, you don't get any residuals, even if it's a movie or anything like that. And so it's really sad. I don't know why it's so popular. I love it, though. It's just so fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Has it influenced the way you write?
Oh, my gosh. That's such a good question. I don't know. I've never thought about it. I do think you know what anime does really well that I really love is like queer coding, because that's another like form of
They do
media
that.
where they don't
OD.
necessarily name it,
Frieza.
you know, but yeah, exactly.
Come on,
Cell.
bro.
Because he's pink.
Cell.
Come on.
Cell is woo.
Oh yeah,
Cell
Cell.
is out there.
Cell is an evil.
Cell's the evilest gay man ever.
He is.
Nappa.
No,
Nappa's like the booty warrior.
no, raccoon.
No, I think you're
nigga,
thinking of the whole Ginyu Force.
raccoon.
Ginyu Force.
Goddammit.
Yes,
Raccoon
yes.
was crazy.
Woo, hitting that cross leg, goddammit. Yo, that cross leg is serious.
That
And
cross
then
leg is
who is
damn
it? I think it's Gengu, the main nigga. He looking between his legs. He's like, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
come on now.
No, you're definitely onto something with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
So
I-
that's something I
You
love
really
about
onto
it.
some shit. Wait a minute.
No, it's like so true.
I think it's part
We
of how
all knew
people
that
find
about
themselves
Frieza,
in it.
though.
Well, it's
Come
like one of
on.
those things you watch it as a kid and you're like, oh, this is funny. And then you watch it as an adult and you're like,
Damn.
"Got a little
Wait a
sugar in his
minute.
bowl. Like, what's going on?
not even Frieza, Zarbon.
What's
Yo,
wrong?
Zarbon was
Which
serious.
one?
With the green braided hair, who beat up Vegeta. He turned into
Yes,
a big
he was.
toad
It was him
look
and
this guy
Deborah.
up.
It was him.
Turquoise skin.
No, sorry, Dodoria.
Dodoria.
It was Zarbon and Dodoria
Zarbon?
because it was
Oh
two
my
of
God,
two of
yo,
Frieza's
yo.
henchmen.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. He's got
a
like,
douchey.
he's
gay
got like the
dude.
Look at
40-inch sew-in.
Zarbon and then look at Dodora. If you look at Dodoria, you will see that shit too. Like,
my God. Oh, yes, he, like,
my
turns
Lord.
into
All
an
of them are like
alligator.
wearing lipstick, basically.
All of them
Also,
was zesty.
and Bobbity. I'd say Bobbity too.
And
Bobbity.
they all are
Like an
wearing those
evil
little
little gay.
underwear. You know what I mean? They all got their thighs out.
see
You
what I'm
know,
saying?
like at all
They're all out
times.
here in
that
the
shit.
Batman thongs, yo. Like,
Yes.
The 14-inch inseam.
Yes,
The Nike woven shorts.
why
The
are you
Oh.
worried
2-inch.
about my Gymshark
The
shorts right
2-inch
now, my
inseam.
Bro,
nigga?
don't forget about Wheeze, goddammit. Don't forget about
Wheeze?
Wheeze. Yes,
Oh,
bro.
yes.
Oh, yeah, totally,
This is
totally,
this
totally.
so this
What?
is this is
Wheeze?
this is Dragon Ball Super. It's Dragon Ball
Oh,
Super.
I didn't watch that.
I'm gonna show you Wheeze. There is there's a
Whis
lot
is
of queer
literally
coding in this
RuPaul.
goddamn
Whis is
show.
literally-
I'm telling you.
Whis
I'm
is a drag
telling
queen.
you.
Whis is a drag queen,
He
straight up.
is a drag queen. Look, okay, I'm
Yeah, no,
gonna show
me,
you.
please.
I'm gonna show you Wheeze, and you're gonna be like, oh, definitely. So
just with less like brolic makeup.
this man right here, well, this
Not
person.
the RuPaul of Dragon Ball Z.
Oh my God.
I mean, look,
Might as well be. Come
Oh
on.
my God. Yes, that is a drag queen.
come on now.
That is an
Come
intergalactic
on now,
drag
bro.
queen.
Intergalactic
They're
drag.
so
Like-
ambiguous. What the hair?
That's like
Yeah.
Chris Tucker in The Fifth Element.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I just
And-
rewatched
and-
The Fifth
and-
Element the other day.
Oh, that's my shit.
So good.
That's my
it's
shit.
so it's like top
One of my
five.
favorites.
Corbin Dallas.
Did you know that Prince was supposed to play that shit?
Yes,
And
yes.
then he was
He's
like,
too good for
he
that.
said the clothes are just no.
The clothes were incredible.
The clothes were incredible.
Oh my God.
Yes.
It's,
That's
you know,
how you
that's
know
not,
Prince was like a
my man.
that's-
Come on, my man.
I don't feel so
who's
good.
the designer? Is it Jean Paul Sartre? Or not? Wait, that's not.
That
That's not
movie
a-
was definitely ahead of his time. Definitely ahead of his time. I love it to
Shout out
this
to
day.
Bruce Willis. You know what I'm
Shout
saying?
out to
Oh my
Bruce
God,
Willis, you know,
peak
we're praying
Bruce
for you, bro.
Willis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
he's
my heart hurt.
Yeah, it's very sad. Jean Paul Gaultier, that's what it is. Not
the designer.
I said
Jean Paul Sartre.
Yeah, that's the philosopher. I think. I've been reading too much theory.
But this actually, as we start to land the plane here, this dovetails nicely into. I have two this or that questions for you.
Oh, I have a fun question. I have a couple fun questions too. You look at
okay.
them and then you pick which one.
There you go.
Say.
This is the
Fucking
best
dick.
interview you're gonna ever have. Okay,
Don't say. I
Honestly.
don't. I feel like I'm peaking kind of early.
come on now.
No,
Come on now.
They're gonna have more interviews with us when they're
Oh,
making
yeah.
more plays.
There we
Oh,
go.
and then it's gonna go on Broadway when Broadway acts right. Okay.
That last one is fun.
The last one?
That last one's fun.
Really? All right, cool.
I mean,
Fine. The
you
last
wanted
one's
to ask
fine.
the other one.
No, it's fine.
All right. Let me ask you these two rapid fire questions.
Okay, rapid
the first
fire.
one is very easy. Subs or dubs?
Okay. All right.
Since I wanted to ask you because you are
There's
a
only-
dub
there's only
act.
one
It's
answer.
hard. Okay, I have to say I was like hardcore subs for the longest time. I was like, this is
okay.
the only pure way to watch anime. This is what they intended. But then I saw the work that goes into dubs and like the localization that happens and like the adding of like local slang and stuff like that. And Also, sometimes I like to like do things while I'm watching anime.
So you can't be looking at
yes,
the.
Yeah, I see what you're
and
saying.
so honestly, sometimes if I have time, especially if I'm watching a shorter series, which I love to do, I will watch both. And it just depends on the mood and like whether or not I'm willing to look at the screen. But I find it depends show to show. You know, I definitely have certain shows that I prefer the subs, but I appreciate dubs.
I think it's as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate Japanese voice acting a lot more than I used to growing up. Like I just kind of took it for granted, and both of them. I think like Attack on Titan, which is probably the one anime that I'm like gonna
fucking
finish.
amazing,
Oh
bro.
it's so hard. Like I've not.
Forever.
Yeah, I've not been able to finish it because every episode I'm like sobbing like a baby.
Yeah, I'm not watching
I'm like, war is bad. Why do we do this?
Allie, I need you to look at me right now. Right now, we in some shit for Attack on Titan.
I haven't made it past season 1 because I'm like, this is too much. It's too much. I've tried 3 times. I know. I've tried 3 times, and every time I'm like, this is so fucking depressing.
It only gets
Ridiculous.
worse, but better. That's a good answer.
Like the new,
very diplomatic.
Yes, I gotta be.
They're in Harlem. Dipset.
They're what? What did you say?
Dipset. Oh my God, you need to give me a phone.
Dipset?
Give me a fucking phone.
Dipset is
Jude is gonna
an
plug you.
iconic Harlem rap group. No,
Why am I giving you my phone?
I'm gonna go into your Spotify and give you homework. You live in Harlem.
You have to be
Fucking
educated
Harlem,
now.
yo.
I do live in Harlem.
Jude
now.
will do this. While he does that, my second question is it's not going to ask you to choose between 2 things. It's just more of a thinking question.
Okay. Ooh, a thinking question.
One Shakespeare play that needs a break and one that needs more love.
Oh my God. I'm so sick of King Lear.
Okay. Wes Wes's neck just extended. His head is now at the table. He looks like Mr. Fantastic. His head is.
Do you have a pair of Air Force Ones?
No, I don't. I got some Reeboks.
We gotta get them. We gotta get them.
If you get if you get some Timbs as well, you're gonna make this guy
Oh
happy.
my God,
okay?
not Timbs.
But why Lear? Why would you give a break to Lear?
I'm just sick of seeing white men yell at the rain. I don't know. Like it's just like I feel like they keep doing it, and it just always feels like especially since Trump got elected. It's like it just feels like this is what power can do to you, and I'm like, okay, there are other plays.
Yeah.
And what was the second part?
One that needs more love.
Honestly, Two Gentlemen of Verona. I love it, but it's hard because it's got the 2 sets of twins.
Okay.
So I think that's
hard.
a logistical issue, and it's a huge cast, and so you need a lot of actors that can't really double.
Could they animate Shakespeare?
Yeah.
They could if they want
I don't think I ever seen things like that, and with something.
That's
like
a good
that with the
question.
2 sets of twins, you can get one voice actor like Regina King did, Riley
Yes.
Huey,
Yes.
Boondocks or something,
Boondocks, yes,
to
classic.
give 2 different tones of a character where they still sound the same,
That's
but
a good
it's
question.
different. Why don't they do more animation for Shakespeare?
Probably because people still kind of think animation is lowbrow, and so they would never put animation and Shakespeare in the same camp, even though we've seen time and again that animation is a wonderful
Incredible.
medium.
Like Iron
That's
Giant,
awesome.
come on.
Oh my God.
I mean,
heart-wrenching.
Allie just mentioned Studio Ghibli, like all those movies,
Yes.
Princess Mononoke and all that stuff.
Map-
Oh my God. Yes.
Horde.
Yes.
Mappa, the creative team is ridiculous. Love them. Anyways, sorry.
So
I
2
like
gentlemen.
I would have to think about it. But yeah, that's the one that comes to mind first because I
Yeah.
never see it done, and I think it's hilarious. Honestly, there's a lot of physical comedy, and I feel like that's another thing I would like. We were talking about what would you preserve from Shakespeare? I think a lot of people put focus on the language, which of course there is, but I think there's so much physicality. Especially in that play, that they're literally running around, and they're getting mistaken for each other, they're slapping each other. I just love that classic slapstick dumb shit. It's
That could
funny
be
to
such
watch
a good
people get
Looney
hurt.
Tunes thing.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God, Looney Tunes, another classic.
Queer coding.
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh my
yes.
Lord, they were zesty. God damn it.
Well, Jude, you have a fun question.
Who would you like to co-write a play with from anybody in history?
Oh my gosh, Lorraine Hansberry.
Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we
She's
go.
gone before her time. I think she died when she was 36.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
Good answer.
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happened?
She got cancer.
Damn.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
It always takes the good ones, not the bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Langston also died of cancer, I think.
He was in his 50s, yeah?
He died in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bullshit grandfather's still alive at 95 years old.
Right?
Fuck that
My
nigga.
daddy's still breathing. Oh, God.
You have one more?
Yeah. Okay. That a question before I even say anything. Can you sing?
I love to sing. I don't know.
You love to sing? Okay, so would you want to do voice acting or be on Broadway?
I'd probably say Broadway. For me, voice acting is fun, but it's never like, scratch that itch for me. And it might be because I had a very short, like I said, I only did it for a few years. And so it's not like I had this illustrious career or anything. I have a niche of fans that are very, very, passionate.
Yeah.
But, it's a very niche animes that I've been a part of.
Yeah.
So I'd definitely say Broadway. I love acting. I miss it so much. I mean, I've got to do a little bit in school, but when I came here, but I miss it. Yeah.
So you've never been invited to a Comic-Con to speak for?
I was invited to one in Luxembourg this year.
Wow.
And
That's Germany, right?
Yeah. And it was so cool. They were like, let us know if you want a booth. And I was like, I can't afford to go to Germany, but this is so fucking
If y'all were
cool.
flying me out.
Exactly. It was one of those things like, if you make it here, we'll give you the space to do whatever.
That's fire.
Yeah, it was really cool. That was my first time. But yeah, it's like I was in, like, it's weird. Like probably my most popular character, of course, is like the sexiest one. Like it's.
What's your character? Let me do some.
It's Briar in Fairy Tale.
Okay.
Which is also probably the most popular
I
one
still
I've
need
ever
to see
been in.
Fairy Tale. I still need to see that.
It's also another one that's like, I was on episode like 247, so I was like, well, I'm not.
Well, we're gonna go to
doing all that.
247.
I'm not watching all that. But I watched my episodes.
Okay.
Damn.
Yes.
Holy
No, but look at her
fuck.
full body. It's a very Nicki Minaj inspired. Yeah.
Meg the Stallion.
Yes,
Stop.
absolutely. Absolutely. And people obviously go crazy with this character. They fucking love her so much.
Allie.
They're like, you're Briar? Oh my God. I'm
Allie,
like, yeah.
I hate to put you on the spot, but can you give us a little Briar?
Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute. Oh
It's been
shit.
years.
I remember seeing a. I remember seeing a clip of Briar, and then people were like, "Yo, this fucking character right here, bro. Oh
my God.
fucking amazing." So
She's
I'm sorry.
so cool.
Go ahead.
No, she's so cool. She has this magic where she splits into like 4 different personalities. So she has like angry Briar, sad Briar, loving Briar, which is like sensual, and laughing Briar.
Give us Laughing Briar.
Oh my God, I have such
My
a
bad,
funny.
my bad.
I definitely did an anime. Like, it's a very classic, like.
Is it the racist anime?
It's not that. It's the other one. There's another name for it. There's a name for this laugh, but that's.
We're not looking at you.
I'm
I'm
so
not looking at
embarrassed.
you.
Well,
You
it's
could do the
just
angry
like,
one, whichever one's easier to do.
Well,
I'm
I
looking
mean,
at you.
I was only. Oh my God, I was only that.
You're by yourself.
Briar was very like. What did her voice sound like? It's seriously been so long, but she's very like. She was very. Oh my God, y'all are so funny. You're all looking away. You're so cute.
We should get into character.
I wanna
Get
get the
into characters. You know what I mean?
Well, she talked down here, and it was like very sexy, and like she was like very sarcastic and like very, very monotone kind of. But then when she split, she was like, she's like, I'm angry Briar, and like, I'm loving Briar. And then what was the laughing? So the laughing one, I'm telling you, it's very anime. Okay, this is the most embarrassing thing I'll do all day probably. But it was literally like, like, very anime. I'm laughing Briar. Like, it was very. That was definitely the most like.
That's the most anime shit I've ever heard of.
That's fine.
Yes.
Give it up. Give it up.
Thank you. $35 an hour.
Just like Drink Champs.
Just like Drink Champs. Yo, let's give it up.
Let's give it up for Sexy Briar.
No, that was great. If I were to go into voice acting, I would love to do like an anime. I would love to be in one. I
It's very
love
fun.
I love the concept of anime and like how much it has grown over the years, and especially we don't really cater to a lot of the old anime. Of course, like you do, but of course there are plenty of other shows where people just forget about them, and of course like now
there's so many shows, yeah.
so many. But now it's kicking up where I feel like aside from aside from certain shows that are here in America, which we have like Grey's Anatomy, which is still popular, and there are certain trendy shows that we'll always remember. But anime has hit America like a freight train over the past few years.
Yeah, I feel
Dragon
like
Ball
Attack
has
on
been around
Titan
since the
sort of
80s.
started
Attack
it.
on Titan, My Hero Academia.
Yes,
you
yes.
have Naruto.
Yeah.
You got One Piece.
One
Is
Piece.
One
Oh my
Piece has been
God.
around
It
for
will never
100 years.
end. It will
Bonkers.
never end.
One Piece going bonkers, but definitely like
The world will end before One Piece ends.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I feel like a
Absolutely.
lot of people are definitely going to be going into voice acting, especially when TikTok is there and folks are doing these voiceovers. Like
and
voice
it's becoming
acting
more
is getting in
diverse
there.
too. They're opening
is.
it up, and like ever since the pandemic, there's more like remote opportunities. It used to be you have to live in LA or Dallas, or else you'll never do voiceover.
Really? Oh shit!
Maybe New
in,
York.
niggas.
But now it's like they're a lot more open to remote work. So that
great.
means there's just some
Wow.
more diversity of people.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I feel like we've done a decent job. We're not gonna say we did an amazing job with doing that, but it's still growing.
It's a
but
process.
It's a
Yeah.
process. So
Trust it.
it was sort of for me when I saw that in your bio. I said, "Oh shit, okay, well we'll definitely talk about that because I've been wanting to get into that for quite some time. We'll talk about that. After the show.
Let's talk.
We got to get out of Wesley's house so he can watch Succession.
Yes. One of my friends.
It is King Lear, and I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it. Just die already.
I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure.
By the time that you're listening, Harlem and Moscow will be out this weekend. We've got 3 performances, a matinee on Saturday, an evening show, and then another matinee on Sunday. Check out the link. We'll post it along with the show notes. It'll be in Allie's bio as well as on the Harlem and Moscow Instagram page. Allie, just real quick, what's something that you hope people take away from seeing the show?
Oh God. Well, that history is complicated, and so many figures we know and love have curated their own image and been curated by the culture and the violence of history, really. And to just look at people as complex, and communism is complex, and Russia is complex. It's not as one-sided as our core curriculum would have us believe.
Well said. Well said. Alle Mims, everybody.
Alle Mims.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Or Briar from Fairy Tale.